Hey, what's up? Hello, everyone. Welcome into Fantasy Filmball, the show where we turn movies into sports and sports into something we don't talk about here. My name is Matt.
My name is Dyl, and sadly, we are no longer in person. We are here back to the Zoom format for predictions, but we must keep predicting because this is the fun part of the season, as you always say, Matt, because we don't really know anything about all of these movies. So if you are interested in super early predictions throughout the whole Oscar season, make sure to like this video, subscribe, because we're going to have so much coming out here shortly. And something new that we're doing this year is questions. So drop down your questions down below. They can be asking us something, they can be your own bold takes for the season, anything like that, and we will answer them at the end of these videos. So stay tuned to the end today because we have a few questions from all of you out there. But Matt, what has changed since our last record was like 3 months ago?
Well, like you were saying, Dylan, the best part of this part of the season is we get to see the things that are upcoming. We don't know much about them, and that's where the predicting comes in. You know, we get to think what is going to happen, and this is the time of year where things are changing every week. New information keeps getting released about these movies that we haven't seen yet, and things are just coming out of nowhere and surprising us all throughout the season. So there have been a few big announcements over the past few weeks since we last recorded. Like last night. We're recording this on Wednesday morning, and last night the Joker 2 trailer came out, and with that, obviously, this is a big shakeup for the race because while I think a lot of us had assumed that Dune Part 2 would be the undisputed champ for a lot of the technical categories, Joker just came in with a damn steel chair because this looks delicious for that cinematography, for the production design, costume design, makeup. All of that is looking spectacular. And I'm thinking this could be bigger than the first one. The reaction to the trailer is like not as polarizing as I was expecting it to be. And I have a question for you, Dylan. Do you think this is going to be bigger than the first?
I think I can see it go two ways because to me, the Joker discourse, at least the one that we've been having on our Discord, shameless plug, join it down below, fun community. But I feel like it's a very vocal minority who does not like the original movie and who is not anticipating this new movie. And the majority of people are very pro the original Joker. At least you look at the box office, you look at the audience scores for it. And then this upcoming movie, I think, has potential to be one of the biggest box office hits of the entire year, more than Dune Part 2. And then they're both Warner Brothers movies. So something that I talked about in our picture video was like, what is going to be Warner's main push? Is it Joker? Is it Dune? Is it something else? We don't really know. But this trailer leads me to believe that Joker is still going to be a push, because something I've said to you as well as in our server is the only way I can see Joker not being an Academy darling next February, next March, is just if Warner does not push it. But clearly, they're going to push this because this looks phenomenal.
Mm-hmm. After watching that trailer, I have a weird little inkling of a feeling that I think this might be our Best Director winner. And this feels like a really bold take. But no, okay, here's my argument for this. All right. So Best Director, year after year, every year since 2012. The last time a director winner did not fit this description that I'm about to give is back in 2011 with Michelle Hazanavicius for The Artist. So if you look year after year, director winners always have a film that has a big scope, an epic scale, a lot of ambition. Films that are doing something new or films that are trying to be big and really films that are really painting on a very broad canvas, trying to be really big. And this year, let's look at what could fit that bill that's in the running. We, of course, have Dune Part 2, but I believe that they're not going to take Denis Villeneuve seriously because it's an action movie and it's a sequel and / middle chapter. I know that Joker 2 is also a sequel, so that argument's out of there. But I just think that they're not going to take the film seriously enough. And then there's Megalopolis, Francis Ford Coppola. But the film seems to be really polarizing. And then there's Steve McQueen with Blitz. And the thing with Blitz is I don't believe it's going to be on as big of a scale as people think. I don't think this is going to be a war movie. I think it's going to be a drama with some war elements. I don't see that as a Best Director winner. But look at Joker 2. This is a film that's clearly on a massive scale from this trailer. It's doing something ambitious in transforming into a musical. There's so much about this that feels like people will appreciate the swing that Todd Phillips is taking here, even if the movie isn't a contender to win Best Picture, which I think by the end of the year it could be seen as top 2, top 3. But I just see this as the type of movie that wins Best Director. You know, we've even seen as recently as 2016, musicals can win in this category with Damien Chazelle and La La Land, and this feels very similar.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that I'm very interested to see going forward, where the next trailer goes, how this film is received. Does it hit a festival again, or is it straight to theaters? I think director may be a little too high for me at the moment, because everything I think you could say for Joker 2.
Villeneuve, though? Because
that's my thing is
thunder.
No one for me feels like a director win, but everything you could say for Joker 2 could be said for Dune Part 2, and that's already been proven to have good reception, so I'm just not sure where I want to lead. But this is not a director video. We just put one of those out recently, so definitely go check that one out. But some other big news that's come out since the last time we recorded, because like I said, our in-person was like 3 weeks ago. Megalopolis is going to Cannes, and then another film a lot of people were talking about maybe it's going to Cannes was Juror Number 2, but at CinemaCon, which happened this past week, zero mention of that movie. But to continue the Warner Brothers train, Furiosa had pretty good buzz the other day.
Yeah, the trailer for Furiosa picked up some great buzz. I'm very curious what's happening with Juror Number 2, because it wasn't even on Warner Brothers' slate at CinemaCon. But because we're recording this on Wednesday, obviously a lot can still be presented at CinemaCon. You know, we're waiting on a Gladiator trailer. We're waiting on many things that are going to be coming in the next few days. But yeah, very exciting that it's in Cannes, and it just kind of further cements my feeling that this is going to be the type of movie that even if it's polarizing, people are going to want it to succeed because it's Francis Ford Coppola.
Well, you mentioned polarizing, and that's going to take us into our first category today, being Best Cinematography. And if you want to look at my list, number 1 I know is going to make a lot of you mad, click off, not believe me, because we had those receptions to our earlier videos, but hear me out with Nosferatu. I'm under the impression that it's going to hit a fall film festival. I'm currently banking on Venice. If it goes to Venice, like the original Joker, it submits its stamp that, hey, this is something to take serious. I fully understand. The release date is not ample. The genre that it's in is not typically Academy friendly. Robert Eggers is such a weird filmmaker, but we see weird filmmakers over time break their way in. I mean, look at Yorgos Lanthimos. A year ago, people were like, Poor Things, that's so weird, it's so distant, but at least he had prior track record. This would be Robert Eggers the favorite, you could say, where he could break into the race. And I think if Nosferatu is a contender, you look at all the categories, what is the one that when you watch a Robert Eggers movie, like, yeah, this is the standout? It's the cinematography. And while I'm not saying this whole movie's gonna be black and white, I am pretty confident at least some of the sequences will be, which, you know, the Academy eats up like crazy. The stills so far have not been that, but the stills still look pretty cute. And like I said, when stills come out a year in advance, a studio has to be confident in your movie, because it wasn't just like 12 months. It was like 15, 16 months in advance that we got stills for this movie. And Focus, I know they have other contenders, but Focus is a studio who, at worst, could probably push 2 movies. Maybe not 2 Best Picture movies, but push 2 movies to the Oscars. And maybe Nosferatu isn't a picture player, but regardless of its status in picture, I think this is a solid nomination for it, but I'm just shooting for the stars right here with it winning the category.
I like that you described the stills for Nosferatu as cute. I love it.
The Willem Dafoe screaming one, the Lily Rose Depp one. I don't know. I said this in our picture episode. I'll say it again here because obviously not every viewer is in every episode. But I'm someone who historically does not like Robert Eggers movies. So this isn't even me hope-dicting. This is just me trying to find something that maybe not a lot of other people are on the wavelength. You can look to previous years, like with Barbie last year. No one was having Barbie, but it subverted expectations. It did something in a very interesting style and had a big, passionate fan base behind it. All things I think Nosferatu could do as well. Obviously not $1 billion at the box office, but the critics can be their passionate fan base. And I don't know, maybe it's a crazy take, but it's one I'm willing to stand on for the time being. You talked a little bit before about Joker 2, Dune 2, 2 Warner Brothers movies that have beautiful cinematography. one that's proven, one that we just got a trailer for. And I know the stats with sequels getting into this category, it's not the strongest. But one thing you mentioned for Joker, I think also applies to Dune Part 2, is they're doing it completely different. Dune Part 2 introduces the black and white infrared on Getty Prime. There's a lot of different textures being used in the desert scenes on Arrakis. And I mean, most people love the cinematography. I think that's a route for it to overcome, unlike The Way of Water, which I think a lot of people did agree it looked better. It just came out so late, had no time to build buzz, while Dune Part 2 has the whole year. And then I think Joker Part 2 will do the same thing. It comes out in a prime award slot. It's doing something different. I mean, my favorite shot of that is like the God's Eye view with Arthur walking out with the umbrellas.
The umbrellas.
With this is something I've said before with Joker Part 2 is the fact that it's a musical and it's like a surreal one where it's like not real, it's in his head, it's gonna be fantastical, just lends itself to production design, to cinematography, to costumes. It can do a lot of wacky, bold, eye-popping things, which we know historically the cinematography category adores stuff like that.
Yeah, to take on your whole top three here, I have all three of these in my top five as well. I'm not as confident in Nosferatu as you are, but I am confident in the cinematography because this is a branch that has routinely proven to be very adventurous, to try out things, and they're a branch that's not going to be dissuaded by a horror film the same way that some other branches might be. But that said, I don't think horror is really a full-on deal breaker as long as it's doing something interesting and unique and new and fresh, which is why I have a horror film in my top 10 now for Best Picture, but it's not Nosferatu. Sequels do not get nominated for Best Cinematography, specifically sequels to films that were nominated. And so since Joker was nominated in 2019 for Best Cinematography and Dune won in 2021, that makes them less likely, technically, going by this stat, to get nominated again. But we've seen this time after time. Like, you even look back to The Lord of the Rings, and the only one that got a nomination for cinematography was The Fellowship of the Ring. It was the first one. And we've seen this over and over again. When films get nominated and they have a sequel, no matter how well shot the sequel is, you mentioned Avatar: The Way of Water, the sequel does not get a nomination. So it's kind of wild that we're predicting two of these stat breakers, but I just feel like these two might be undeniable, and the year feels a little bit more thin for these big studio films with gorgeous, ambitious camera work and lighting design. So that's why I feel really good about both Joker and Dune. And I think you put those two head to head, they're going Joker. They're going to do something different. They're not going to double dip for Dune. I kind of think they won't go for a film that has already won for a lot of the same stuff, regardless of how cool Getty Prime is.
That is completely fair. Maybe I'm a little biased. I just rewatched Dune Part 2 yesterday, so the visuals are fresh in my mind. I'm sure later down the line I may flip-flop those two. But those are my top three. I think they are a step above. Those are the three I feel very good for nomination. Everything from this point on, like, maybe not. I can kind of see both angles for them. And at my number 4 slot, I do have Blitz. Don't feel great about this. I agree with a lot of what you have said about it already in this video. It's going to be more focused on the drama aspects with the occasional war sequences. However, if it has big enough buzz, if it's Best Picture top 5, I can easily see them just slot this into the category. And while it may not win many prizes, I think back to like Killers of the Flower Moon last year where it wasn't really winning anywhere, but it was always in the race. I feel like Blitz, not just because they're both Apple movies, but I feel like they could both be on the same trajectory for cinematography throughout this award season race. And then for my 5th slot, typically there's always one movie that's out of left field that could be anything. And the thing is at this point, we don't know what that movie out of left field is, so I'm not going to try to predict it. Instead, I am going to go with Megalopolis just because of a lot of what you said in your video, as well as what the buzz was out of those early reaction screenings of where it's bold, it's grand, and usually there's a pretty good stat of, and obviously it's not 5 for 5, but there's a pretty good correlation between director and cinematography in terms of nominations. And if you think he could be in the realm of director, I feel like it could be in the realm of cinematography. My next few in line, I actually feel stronger about, but I have nothing to go off of with these movies. That's the end. No visuals have come out, just the synopsis of what the story is going to be like and the filmmaker making it. There's Here, the new Robert Zemeckis movie. Cinematographers don't have to play a lot with the visual effects, and I think the makeup as well. I could see this be like a 3 and 3 sort of thing, or like a 0 and 3. Like, it can hit all these categories, or it's just going to miss out entirely. Currently, I have it missing out, but once we get like a trailer or something, I would easily slide this in over Blitz, over Megalopolis. And the last one I have here is the complete opposite of Dune and Joker. I have those sequels getting in. I don't have Gladiator 2, however, because I can't justify 3. I can barely justify 2. I didn't have Joker in before this trailer, and then I shot it right back up. I had it as my number 6, but I just can't justify 3. I know Ridley Scott knows his way around the camera. Gladiator's probably be very grand, but I think like Napoleon, that's going to go more towards like the production design elements, the visual effects, more so than the cinematography.
Blitz has a great angle for sure, especially because they're going to be doing a lot with the production design. And there's a good correlation between production design nominations and cinematography nominations as well. Megalopolis, I am going to need to see footage from it first. I don't really know the cinematographer of this is work, so I'm going to want to see how this all pans out. But, I mean, Coppola, if nothing else, he always puts out visually stunning works, so this does seem like a good bet. I'm really, really interested to see footage from here. I'm curious if they're going to debut anything about it at CinemaCon. It feels like the type of movie they could show off there, especially to say, ooh, look, we're doing a Forrest Gump reunion. Ooh. It would be really cool to show that off there. And that said, you know, the cinematographer of here is the guy who shot Forrest Gump as well. But he's also shot all of Robert Zemeckis' other things through the years, including all of his recent flops, like Pinocchio and Welcome to Marwen. So I'm not too high on it, but yeah. And as for Gladiator 2... I'm not trusting Ridley Scott with cinematography nominations at this point. He's going to color grade the shit out of that movie, and it's going to look awful.
Yeah, that's the fun thing is I saw some footage of Napoleon the other day, and like before the color grade, it looks so like eye-popping for lack of words, and then they throw that color grade on, I'm like, oh, yeah, that doesn't look as good. But one movie I didn't have in my cinematography lineup when we did our predictions 3 weeks ago, but after some recent Cannes announcement news, Horizon Chapter 1, slide up to number 9, Kevin Costner's Western. This could go two ways, and I said this in another server the other day, but like, it's premiering at Cannes. There's, I think, 2 routes it can go. I don't think it'll be as big or as bad as these 2 routes, but these are the 2 avenues it can split from in like a month's time. Last year, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny premiered at Cannes. Everyone just shadowing it. Critic scores were like garbage. No one wanted to like this movie, and that kind of spilled over to the box office and spilled over to award season. I know John Williams still got a nomination at the end of the day, but it had like no precursor support, and that could happen with Horizon. On the other hand, Top Gun Maverick went here about 2 years ago. Rave reviews. It really cemented that, hey, this can be an awards thing. This can be an audience thing. It can be both at the same time. And I'm not saying Horizon's going to be the next Maverick, making $1 billion, getting Best Picture, getting all that. But if it goes to Cannes and people like it, they support it, they get the thumbs of approval, I can see this getting into a few tech categories. Warner has some other stuff. I don't think they'll push it for picture, but they could find this into like cinematography, maybe production design, costumes, stuff like that. Score as well.
I've got it in score.
Nice. Chapter 1 or Chapter 2?
Chapter 1. Because that's where the themes are going to begin. You know, they're going to be introducing the themes. But to talk about Horizon just a little bit, it's a Western. They have big scales. If there's nothing else to expect from a Western, if there's one thing you can expect from a Western, it's that it's going to look epic with these beautiful landscapes. It's easy to make a film look great when you're shooting in the wide plains of the American West because it's just naturally beautiful. I'm
going to blow through the rest of my movies because I don't want to spend 30 minutes talking about cinematography, but we have Luca Guadagnino's Queer, Pablo Larraín's Maria, we got Twisters. Furiosa is a movie I don't really believe in for anything, but the buzz seems to be good, maybe, but again, it's another sequel. This would be like the 4th sequel in my list, and so or 5th, I guess, after Twisters, if you want to count Twisters as a sequel, in my list. So I don't know. There's some other movies, but Matt, what am I really missing for my top 13 here?
Well, the number one thing you're missing is Conclave. What the hell, dude? They just the cinematographer of Conclave just won an Oscar for All Quiet on the Western Front, and you're not even giving him a thought for this? That's wild.
But
I get that.
I probably should have it above Furiosa.
I don't understand why. The signs are really pointing towards this being a hit. Okay, some other ones to rattle off. The Apprentice. They're doing a lot of cool stuff with very long lenses, shooting from distances. It's going to be an interesting looking film, very docudrama, and it could be a little eye-catching in a unique, different way. Not too huge on this one in cinematography. The other thing, you cannot count out Julian Schnabel in the cinematography category, because In the Hand of Dante is a film, I believe In the Hand of Dante is about a painter, and it's by a painter, Julian Schnabel, who did At Eternity's Gate with Willem Dafoe, the Van Gogh movie, as well as The Diving Bell and the Butterfly. He is a painter before he's a filmmaker, and so that bleeds into his movies. I do think it's worth considering In the Hand of Dante.
Well, we talked about cinematography, some other major tech elements that I know people love, and they kind of go hand in hand, is best editing and best sound. So, Matt, which one do you want to start off with today?
I'm going to start off with editing because I'm going to make a bold claim here. Joker, Folie, Deux is going to win best editing.
Ooh.
And I'm going to break from everything I've believed, because 2 years in a row now, we've had stat breaks where the sound winner and the editing winner do not go together. And that has seemed like an impossibility. And the fact that Oppenheimer lost best sound this past year makes me feel like the stat is losing its strength after the two sound categories mesh together. So that's why I have Joker winning editing, and you'll see a little bit later I have Dune Part 2 winning sound. But here's my argument for Joker winning editing. I'm really interested by the way that they're going to cut between these dream sequences, the musical numbers, and reality. I think there's a really strong angle for how they edit, how they interweave reality and sort of this cinematic reality, this fantasy world that the Joker and Harley Quinn exist in. There's a I don't really have many editing winners that I can draw back on that feel like they totally fit that idea of, the meshing of the real world and the fake world. But this just feels like there's a lot of opportunity for some very showy, very flashy editing going into the musical sequences from real life and blending those together cohesively and in a well-paced way that doesn't distract from what the film is trying to do. So that's my argument for it as a winner. But of course, Dune Part 2 is right there behind, because if it's winning sound, that means it has to be damn competitive in best editing. And with the editing of this film, obviously the pacing is excellent. It flies by. Even though it has a little bit of a slower pace, it just feels so purposeful. It just feels so purposeful and impactful with every single cut. This is a film that is going to be big in all of these technical categories. I don't see a reason why it needs to win Best Editing, but I mean, it's an action movie that has a lot of really well-edited sequences, and sometimes that's enough.
I think those are two great ones to have here. I actually went back to my predictions back from the start of March from when we did our last video, and I actually also had Joker winning back then. I think for a lot of the same reasons, because I've been very high on Joker Part 2 last episode, this episode as well. I just think this is going to just hit a chord, and I think the people who didn't like the first one are going to like this, and the people who like the first one are going to still like this, and it's going to be something massive in terms of wins, massive in terms of noms. Two different things. I have it winning an acting prize just like the first one did, just in the other category. I think it can take a tech or two, and then at that point it's just really, how does Warner position it? Are they pushing it as their top dog? Or are they saying, hey, Dune's our number one, Joker's our number two, but we'll hyper-focus Joker in these specific categories? And I think they both have a great shot for, like you talked about, director, maybe picture in a weird world, but more specifically to me is in like specific categories where they just focus everything, whether that's Dune and director, Joker and actress, or some of these tech categories where they're head-to-head.
For my next pick here, I have Blitz. And the reason for Blitz in editing is that it's an ensemble piece. This is a film that's going to be focusing on a lot of different characters. And It's a film that's going to be focusing on a lot of different characters, balancing their different stories, interweaving their different stories from the sounds of it, and that just sounds very interesting. So even beyond the war elements of this, I just think the home front drama that we are going to be seeing here is going to be very well edited. And we've seen McQueen's films in the past are always really, really purposeful in their editing. Then at number 4, I have Sing Sing. And the reason for this is simply that I've moved this up to my number 1 in Best Picture. And if a film is going to win Best Picture, it really should be in editing, unless you're predicting something really odd like Coda, where it just kind of comes out of nowhere at the last minute. Otherwise, editing support shows general support. So just having it in here makes a lot of sense to me when I do kind of see a path for it to be one of the biggest films of this year. And then at number 5, I have The Apprentice. And the reason for this is really, I mean, just thinking about the type of film it is, the frenetic editing style that we've seen in a lot of other political docudramas, knowing how it's being shot with these long lenses across distances, I feel like this is going to be pretty fast-paced, I feel like this is going to be pretty fast-paced with a lot of footage to cut between. It just feels like an editing nominee, and we know the editing category has gone with political films in the past. They nominated the Adam McKay films here, and although I do not expect The Apprentice to feel like an Adam McKay film whatsoever, I feel like it fits into the same sort of niche. So that's why I'm kind of riding high on it, but I could easily see it be replaced by Conclave, which is sitting at my number 6 slot, especially because All Quiet didn't get that editing nomination a few years ago. And while I don't believe in apology nominations, it's possible that if this film is as big as All Quiet, the editing branch does rectify their mistake this time and go for Conclave here.
I had the same top 5 as you, so I don't really have much feedback or differences to really jump out here. Our order obviously is a little bit different, but
to kind of close out my list here, I also have Megalopolis sitting there at number 7. It's a little bit low for a film that I think is going to do very well in these technical categories, but the reason is it's polarizing, and while we have seen in the past the editing branch can go for these polarizing films, I feel like the pacing might end up being a bit of an issue, especially having read the script. It was 212 pages, which would translate roughly to 3.5 to 4 hours worth of screen time, and now apparently it's just over 2 hours. And so if they really have trimmed it, I want to know that its structure has been really fixed and that they're not just rushing and rushing and rushing through this. But that rush might detract from its chances. At number 8, I've got a little bit of a wild card here. I'm going to talk about this later in the video when we get to our questions period, but Night Bitch is my number 8. I won't say too much about it here, but I will say I'm losing faith in the Supremes at Earl's All You Can Eat as the Best Picture contender for Searchlight. And we'll touch on that a little bit later. Night Bitch, number 8. And then we've got The Nickel Boys. Don't have much to say about this here. It just feels like a film that if it's in picture, editing could be a thing. I've heard it's nonlinear storytelling in the book, and if they continue with that in the film, and there's a lot of jumping between time periods, balancing different timelines, then that is a great argument for it in an editing nomination. And finishing my top 10, we've got Furiosa, a Mad Max saga, which, I mean, it's Mad Max. It's fast. It moves. We know what the editing is going to feel like, even just from watching the trailers. It's in your face. It's in your face. It's go, go, go. It is high-octane thrill cinema.
I think to transition over to sound, it's really funny that your top 5 are all sequels.
Oh, wow. My top 5 are all sequels in sound. But sound doesn't feel gatekeepy
It doesn't.
The same way. So I'm not
The creator got in.
I'm not as worried about sound. Yeah, they gave a Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 got in last year. So to me, my sound lineup, it's chaotic. It's messy. They're all sequels. They're all franchise films. But at the moment, it feels right. These all feel like films that are going to have a lot of sound going on. Of course, Dune Part 2 is my number 1. We've seen the film, and more importantly, we've heard the film. And more importantly, we've heard the film from 2 theaters away from the IMAX theater playing the film, because that film bleeds through the because that film bleeds through the damn walls. But anyway, like the thing with Dune Part 2, your seats shake, and miraculously, despite the fact that the sound effects, the music is this wall of sound that just blasts at you at all times, there is not one line of dialogue that lacks for clarity. See Christopher Nolan, it can be done. You can have a loud movie that is loud the entire time where you never struggle to hear what someone is saying. It's incredible sound work, and although I have heard from our resident friend, sound designer, Lucas, who said that the sound was actually mixed to a level that was dangerous for speakers, to the point where it actually has broken speakers in cinemas. I don't think that's going to matter much because of everything that I just said. The sound is just, it rumbles through you and has the clarity that you need. It's some of the best sound work that I've ever heard in cinema. So yeah, that's one that I feel very solid. If I could lock up one award, besides visual effects.
There you go.
Visual effects is the lock, but sound feels pretty damn close to a lock as well for Dune Part 2. Then we got Furiosa, a Mad Max saga, because, hear me out, Dylan.
Okay, I'll hear you out first.
Did the trailer play for you in IMAX yesterday when you saw Dune Part 2 again?
It did. It was the first trailer,
It did?
though.
Yeah, okay. Did the trailer not rumble your seat and shake you to your damn bones more than Dune Part 2 did? Because the mixing in that trailer, really, every time I've seen that trailer in theaters, specifically in IMAX theaters, I've been like, wow, that is the loudest thing I've ever heard in my entire life. It's got the cars going vroom. They love the vroom vroom movies, except Ferrari, which was just bad sound design to begin with. But it's got cars. It's got cars.
Cars and cars and cars. And it's got
There's
guitar-playing guys
things.
blowing fire.
Guitar playing guys blowing fire, Chris Hemsworth speaking into a microphone, and the soundtrack, from what we're hearing, it just seems like it's just thumping, like, I just have a great feeling that if nothing else, the sound design in this movie is going to be a carryover from the last one, because this film series, Mad Max, is just perfectly designed for sound. And then I also have Twisters. You're going to be happy to hear that. Because
propaganda's
it's the
worked.
wind. They're going to be doing so much of the... But, like, you know, the rumbling. I can just feel it. Like, I'm going to sit down in a theater later this summer, and there's just going to be this distant rumbling that you just feel, and you feel it approaching. And that's the key to a sound nomination for this. And then Joker, Folie à Deux. Hey, look, it's a musical. If musicals are a thing in Best Picture, a lot of the time they come along with a sound nomination. And I know people are going to say it's not a musical. They keep saying it's not a musical. You know why they're saying it's not a musical? It's so people that don't like musicals will go and see it. Have you learned nothing from Mean Girls? Have you learned nothing from The Color Purple? Have you learned nothing from Wonka? They will not tell you a film is a musical, and they will deny that it's a musical until you sit down and everyone's singing. And so, yeah, it just feels to me like there's a lot of potential for sound here beyond the musical numbers as well. You know, there's definitely going to be riot sequences like there were in the first film, and there's going to be some cool atmospheric sound as well. I'm looking forward to hearing how they integrate Hildur Guðnadóttir's score into the prior existing music, because I feel like it's going to blend and weave in a really interesting way. And then at number 5, I have Gladiator Part 2, and hey, I know that Napoleon didn't do it last year, but let's just think about, yeah, it came definitely pretty close. And let's just think about like what the sound opportunities for this are. You got swords hitting each other. You got the cling clang of the shields, and there's definitely going to be some animals in this one. There's always some of that. I don't know. I just... All of these 5 films, yes, they're all franchises. Yes, they're all kind of action-y films, but all of them have such great opportunity for sound. And that's what I'm looking at this early in the year. We haven't seen most of these movies, but they fit the profile of a Best Sound nomination. Should I have something maybe a little bit more low-key? Sure. Yes. Should I put Blitz in? Maybe. I just don't believe there's going to be a lot of war sequences, which is going to be other people's argument for why that's a nominee. I just feel like most of the film is going to be the average lives of Londoners during the Blitz, but not about the Blitz itself. So I don't know.
To come to your defense, looking at some past years of sound nominations, there usually are all 5 blockbusters. Last year, besides Zone of Interest and maybe Maestro, but that has music, grand. The other 3, all blockbusters. 2022, all 5 war movies, loud movies, whatever. Elvis, still music movie. 2021, besides Power of the Dog, you got a musical, you got 2 action movies, you have a riot movie with Belfast, and Power of the Dog has the sounds of the West. And then 2020, 2021, Sound of Metal, music, sound sort of thing. Greyhound, boom in your face, make old-timey sound, news of the world, western stuff, soul, music. So they do like their blockbusters, they do like their music stuff. That's what your category is filled of. That's where my one switch in your category would come from. I would boot out Furiosa at this moment. I am of the belief that Warner has too much on their plate. Furiosa is 3rd, 4th in line for them. And I think there's another movie that Warner has that's above Furiosa, and that is a Western and has those sounds of the West.
Oh my
and
God,
that's why I have
in.
Horizon at number 5.
That's bold, and I respect the hell out of it. You know what? That's awesome. That's really...
The sounds of the West,
right.
Like I said, since this category has become one category, it's like every other year they got one in there, and
yeah.
I don't know.
The World, Power of the Dog, recently?
Those are the 2.
Those are the 2.
Those are the 2. The last 2 years just haven't really had movies from the Westerns. Just because they don't make those anymore. But like you talked about earlier with Score, they do like their Western type sounds. And assuming there is some action, it could kind of check off that box as well. Obviously, that's another shot in the dark type of thing. Do I fully believe that? No, but I believe that more than I believe Furiosa at this moment. I know the reviews... I know the buzz on it early on is positive. I just feel like this is a movie that is just not going to be an awards push. And we all look back like, how does this movie have 0 nominations? It's so good. I'm not saying like 1 for 1, The Iron Claw, but it's like The Iron Claw from last year. A24 had too much other stuff to care about that movie. And I think Warner is going to be the same this year with Furiosa.
Megalopolis is another one that has some riot scenes, like what you said with Belfast, and I want to see this movie first. Because again, I think the sound category is a little bit more populist. They don't go for some of the more adventurous ones that often. Like Zone of Interest was a bit of a wild one for them to
It's
go
still
with.
a Best Picture movie, though.
And it was still a Best Picture movie. Same with Roma. That was another one where I was like, ooh, good for you, sound. You guys did a really cool job there. But that was also a Best Picture movie. And yeah, so Megalopolis... It probably will be too, but I want to see it first. I want to see what they're doing with the sound and hear it with my own ears, because reading the script, it didn't jump out to me as like, this has to be a sound nomination. And then some other ones, obviously, I've talked a lot about the history of sound in a few other videos. It has sound in the name, so I feel obligated to put it in my top 10. But as the year's going on, I'm feeling more and more like, since we're not hearing anything about it, if it's not in the TIFF lineup, I'm thinking it's just a next year movie instead. And then there's Wicked Part 1. I think our musical slot is covered with Joker, Folie, Deux, but it's still worth mentioning just because there's also Deadpool and Wolverine. Marvel usually gets at least one of the shortlisted 10, and this would make sense as a shortlist, but it's not going to get a nomination. And to rattle off a few other ones, there's always the possibility of a big action movie like The Fall Guy, or one of the visual effects films like Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes or Mufasa the Lion King. That's sort of everything that I'm thinking of at the moment. And let's carry over, unless you have anything more to say, let's carry over to Best Visual Effects.
Yeah, Best Visual Effects is a category that I always think is super easy to predict early on, because you kind of know all your contenders. Is just figuring out how will they play over the course of the year. I think between the 3 years we've done this, the last 2 years, we've had our 5 in our early predictions. Just were they in our top 5 or were they just in our top 10 sort of thing. Obviously with the exclusion of Godzilla from last year, because none of us knew that movie existed at this point last year. Yeah. So that's our caveat going into this category. But besides that, I have 12 movies I feel really good about. Just which 10 make our short list is the other question. So let's just go with the obvious stuff here. We have Dune Dune Part 2 at number 1. It's going to win. Avatar: The Way of Water show that you can win this category before, and you can win it again as long as you're good enough. And
you can win this category before the year even begins, basically.
Exactly, and it's done that. The only movie I could see overtake this would not be Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, but that's my number 2. They've yet to win before, but they always get nominated, and they always just happen to go against something that's just undeniable, and that happens again for the Apes. I think it would be very interesting to see if this came out, like if Dune came out last year, would this be the Apes' year to shine, or would they still get outsourced by someone else?
That's a great question. I think if Dune was last year and this year was still impacted by strikes and a little bit thinner, this might have been the year of the apes.
We got Monkey Man, we got Kong, we got whoever the new ape is going to be called in this movie. Dominating cinema is just not in the visual effects category. Twisters is my number 3. I've said this numerous times on this show, in our Discord, and where basically anyone would listen to me. I feel like Twisters is on a Mission Impossible type trajectory this year, where visual effects sound feel very good. It may be in competition for some other things like that 10 to 15 range, but it's just going to be that populist movie that pops its head up in multiple categories, but probably won't win either of those. The only movie, as I mentioned before, that could maybe upset Dune, and I think it's like a 99 to 1% chance, would be that Robert Zemeckis Hero movie, just for the invention type stuff of it, how different it's going to be, how original it's going to be. But again, don't think this is actually going to win, and I think this is one that there's a great chance that it doesn't even get nominated, doesn't even get shortlisted, and that's why it's at my number 4 slots. I'm a lot lower on it than I probably should be. Like if this was ranked in terms of winning, it would be higher, but it's at my 4 because there are major doubts. This is one I could see, like Oppenheimer misses the short list. Everyone's like, what? This should be like our number 2 or number 1 of the category, and you don't even make the short list sort of thing. So that's why it's just at my number 4 slot. And as you mentioned in sound, it's very true in visual effects as well. The MCU always finds its way into the short list, if not with one movie, with multiple. And this year they only have one movie, and I feel like that one movie can find its way into a lineup of 5, and that is Deadpool and Wolverine. I know the first 2 Deadpool movies did not make the lineup, but they did not have the MCU campaign behind them. For as much negativity as this visual effects community gives the MCU, they still always nominate them, and I don't think that ends this year.
I kind of do think it ends this year, just because, it's not like we have options, and even if Deadpool and Wolverine is really well received, like, when was the last time we had an X-Men movie in there? Probably like Days of Future Past in 2014, and before that, it wasn't very often that X-Men movies got in. So it's not like Wolverine has a track record of getting in. Did Logan even get a visual effects nomination?
I don't know if they got in, but I still go back to the year of Wakanda Forever, where it missed every precursor and still got the nomination over stuff that seemed so much more likely, like Nope, like other stuff that got all these precursors. So at the end of the day, I will always predict an MCU movie as long as they make the short list. So even if I personally think like my number 6 movie is stronger in this category, I can't justify having that movie out until something presents itself so strong for me to have it out.
Yeah, I looked up. Logan did not get a visual effects nomination, and I don't think this will either. I just don't see... I just don't see the angle, even though, yes, the MCU always gets nominated, even when it seems unlikely that they will. It just feels to me like they're on a downward trajectory. Everyone sees it. Everyone knows it. And unless the film is a sensation like Guardians of the Galaxy kind of was last year, where people were just like, oh my God, this is the return of what we liked about the MCU. I don't know if it'll make it in. I don't know if I agree. Also, to talk about here, you're right that it could be a winner, but I kind of think the AI angle of it all is going to really kill it. It's going to really hurt the film just in all aspects. So for people who don't know what Here is, it's the new Robert Zemeckis film, and it's set in one room, stars Tom Hanks and Robin Wright. And what they did when shooting the film is they had on-set VFX artists using AI to in camera de-age both Tom Hanks and Robin Wright. And so the film starts with them as like mid-20s, I believe, and then it ages them up until they are much older than they are now. And it used AI to do that. And while that sounds really cool and sounds really interesting and innovative, we are at a point where, for one thing, the actors just all had a huge strike against AI and against the encroaching of AI into taking over actors' jobs and replacing their faces and doing stuff like that. And we also had writers against the AI. Directors kind of folded. They were weak. But right now, I think one of the big concerns is in the technical categories. The technical branches are worried about being replaced by AI, especially visual effects artists, who are going to see a lot of their work being taken over by artificial intelligence. We've seen the huge outcry over using like 2 or 3 images in Late Night with the Devil, just like those were photos. And this is a whole movie where they used AI to change their faces. It feels like a disaster in the making in terms of PR.
I agree with all that was said. However, my one drawback to that is something that you said at the beginning there. The visual effects artists are the ones who used the AI. And if they were okay with it, just like in Late Night with the Devil, where the graphics team were the ones who used the AI, the physical creatives are the ones doing it themselves and they're giving the thumbs up, I think it will be fine. Now, if it was Robert Zemeckis saying, no, we use AI, I don't care about you visual effects artists, that's where the issue would come. Like when Disney was saying that, it would be in the campaign. I think the visual effects artists would know that. That's why I'm saying if it makes the short list, it's in. If they gatekeep it, obviously it's going to suffer across the board sort of thing. It's something that we won't know until like the end of the year.
For sure. And this is the thing. This is my feeling with AI. I think AI is a tool that we're going to see everywhere from now on. And I think sticking your head in the sand and shouting la 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 la, AI is the devil, is not going to really change the trajectory of the industry. The fact of the matter is people are going to use AI in their workflow. And the people who are going to lose jobs are the ones who are going to refuse to use that tool. Think back to the 1980s when Tron was disqualified from a visual effects nomination because they used computer-generated imagery, which was seen as cheating at the time. And I think a similar thing is going to be happening here with Here, where Here I do see as being revolutionary, and I think it's going to change the way that the visual effects industry does their work going forward. But because it's the first of its kind, and it's going to be seen as scary and like it's going to be seen as apocalyptic in a way to people's careers, I do think there's going to be resistance to it. But in 5 years, I think most of the visual effects nominees every year are going to use artificial intelligence in some way to do backgrounds or to do facial changes or things like that. I just think it's too soon.
Mm-hmm. That's completely fair. We'll have to see how that plays out for the rest of the year. And like I said, here's the one I can easily see dropping out of this top 5, whether it's missing the short list or just resistance on nomination time. My first alternative would be Mufasa. The Lion King made it in. Mufasa seems like it's going to be a better received movie. It's just another one of those where Disney has apes. They have Deadpool. Are they going to get 3 of the 5 slots? Maybe.
They're not going to get Deadpool. They're going to get this.
That is another angle you could go with it as well. I have Gladiator 2 for the same lines as Napoleon. It's going to be those set extensions. It's going to be all of the extras. It's one I had in originally. That's the movie that I actually took out for Here. But still, it's just like I want to see the trailer before I put it in. And I want to hold with Here until I see some negative buzz or a trailer where it just doesn't look good, because that's also a possibility. Godzilla vs. Kong, or that's not the right way to say it. It's Godzilla Kong. The X is silent. But Godzilla Kong, Godzilla Kong is one where the last one made the short list. I know it was a COVID year, but still made the short list. And I'm pretty sure either King of the Monsters or Skull Island or original Godzilla, one of those also made the short list. So they're pretty short list.
I think Kong Skull Island got a nomination.
Okay. So yeah, they're pretty frequent at the short list, just the nominations aren't always consistent. And I think the same goes here, where Giant Monkey, Giant Lizard, put them in, but like they're not going to make the final 5 sort of thing. And that's also I hear about that's also how I feel about Furiosa, is where I think it makes a short list. I just don't think it makes it in because of some other more visually impressive, as well as some other stuff that's just stronger overall. This is where we open it up to all of you out there to drop some questions for us. Like I said at the beginning, this can be movie related, awards related, or just general stuff. We always love to hear it. We love the engagement. Our first one comes from a longtime subscriber, Prinks and Cats, who says, Supremes at Earl's All You Can Eat is rumored to go straight to Hulu. It feels like the type of movie that goes to Hulu. And I have thoughts, but Matt mentioned his before, so I'm going to let him take it away.
Yeah, so with Supremes at Earl's All You Can Eat, it does feel like the type of movie that goes to Hulu. That said, the rumors are baseless at this point. They are coming only from Wikipedia, where the only thing ever that has indicated this would be Hulu is that it says it's a Hulu production on Wikipedia, but there's nothing else out there, and that's honestly probably just an assumption that is wrong, because everywhere else it says that it's designed for theaters. That said, it does feel like a Hulu movie. It feels like very light, mid-brow entertainment, and it feels like the type of movie that may have been a better Oscar contender 20 years ago, 30 years ago. Those types of movies do sometimes make it in, but the way that Searchlight's been acting recently has me feel like their push might be a different movie, because why did they start putting out promo stuff for Night Bitch and release that Night Bitch is releasing at the beginning of December, right in their prime awards release date? And that gets my gears spinning, thinking, is this movie better than expected? Are they feeling like this has potential for an awards run? So all of that is really interesting. What is the festival trajectory going to look like for these films? And to me, Supremes at Earl's All You Can Eat maxes out at like a TIFF premiere. And if it doesn't win the People's Choice Award, I don't think it's a really big contender whatsoever. And what we've learned about Searchlight in the past few years is whatever they take to Venice is usually their Oscar push. So to me, Supremes at Earl's All You Can Eat is on the way out. I am getting less and less confident in it, especially with these latest announcements regarding Night Bitch.
I have always felt wary with Supremes at Earl's. I mean, I have said you need to change that title for me to believe it to begin with, just with a lack of other options. From Searchlight is the only reason I had it, and I still had it at its base minimum of picture, screenplay, and supporting actress. So, like, I wasn't over the moon with it, and I still have it currently. I want to see Night Bitch, a trailer, a deeper plot synopsis, some stills before I go for it. I think there's two worlds from it. Like you said, it's early December. That is a great route to go to Venice, be its main push. But also, a lot of times when movies are switched from straight to streaming to theaters, is usually just because they are more like populist movies. You look at something like in the past that can make...
That's different.
It's not just Mean Girls. Now, of course, now I'm blanking on it. I just had multiple other ones in my head. Like when you were talking now, I blanked. But like it's something that happens kind of frequently where they move a movie from streaming to theaters to make money. And obviously Night Bitch may not make huge money, but that's just a route in my head. I'm not saying that's definitely the route it's going on. I would love to see Searchlight buy something. I would immediately jump to that. But for the meantime, I am starting to have even less confidence in Supremes, and that's already with very low confidence to begin with. But I don't want to say Searchlight's getting nothing, because we've shown even when they have a weak competitor, they can still slide their way into a lineup of 10.
My belief is like this. If Searchlight brings a film to Venice, that's their contender, and I think that would be Night Bitch. If they do not bring a film to Venice and Supremes goes to TIFF, then Supremes might be their contender if it places top 3 for People's Choice. And if Supremes doesn't go to TIFF or it does not win People's Choice Award top 3, then their contender is a real pain or nothing. But that's my order of business right now. So
I like it.
Yeah, that's what I'm sticking with. If Night Bitch shows up in the lineup, then bam, I'm with it. If not, then I'm off Night Bitch. I don't think it's a commercial play, though. This is a film that does not have much commercial prospects, and if it was that they wanted it to be in theaters as like a kind of weird horror movie, it would have gotten their Barbarian spot. You know, they would have dropped it in September. But the fact that it's a December release date for a film from a director like Marielle Heller, that to me feels very confidence-inspiring. It feels like they saw a new cut of the movie and they went, this is better than anticipated. We need to put this in theaters because this has potential.
When you phrase it like that, I think it immediately leads us into our next question, because that's how I feel about this movie. And Tony G out there says the release date for Nosferatu concerns him. And usually movies released this late in the season tend to disappoint, at least on an awards-wise. Which, I mean, is true. You look at Color Purple, you look at Babylon, you look at News of the World, these very, very late release movies tend to struggle when it comes to grand support. Like, obviously, Babylon got 3 nominations. News of the World also got like 2 or 3 sort of thing, but they both underperformed, and Color Purple just got 1. And who knows, that could totally be Nosferatu this year, but I think a lot of what you just said for Night Bitch, I guess, fits here as well. It's just, like I mentioned earlier, it's the stills coming out early. It's the technical prowess that this movie could have. I am also banking on this going to Venice. If it doesn't go to Venice, I immediately will drop it out. Obviously, we don't know the Venice lineup. It's April. We have to guess, just like what we're doing for Cannes. When people are like, oh, what's Neon's Cannes movie? It's the same thing I'm doing. It's what's going to Venice? What could be there? And I think Nosferatu could go there. And like I said, with Barbie, with Joker, it could have that where it's subverting expectations. It's a technical king. It's got this amazing cinematography, production design, costumes, and then at that point, you could maybe see a director thing come up from there. There's an avenue. Is it a great avenue? No, but that's the fun of these early predictions, is to have these big swings, have these big misses, because if you're just predicting what everyone else is predicting, why do you come here?
We have literally the exact same argument between Night Bitch and Nosferatu. We're both predicting a horror movie that no one else thinks is possible from an interesting director who has a slight track record with the Academy but never getting into picture, that has a December release date that we're extra confident in because they released promo stuff super far out. Yeah. That's both of our arguments right now, and we're going to see which one of us lands and which one of us fails, or if we both flop. So
we could flop.
I don't think both will get in, but I think we could both flop. That's fine. If we flop, it's okay. At least we took the swing. And the next question we have is it's more of a statement about The Apprentice. There is absolutely no way that The Apprentice can win Best Picture unless it's Oppie-level masterpiece. Divisive movies like that don't win. And yes, I know we haven't seen the movie yet, but come on. There's no way that this one isn't going to be a topic for debate, especially this year. That's from Journey. And yeah, Journey, I definitely am agreeing more and more with you as we go on. I did have this as my Best Picture winner before, and I'm starting to get less confident. And while I do maintain, I don't think this is going to be that divisive within the Academy itself. And people are going to be burnt out. People are going to be tired. No one's going to want to talk about it. And while that still can land a nomination, you are absolutely right. It's not going to receive a win. And I think something politically adjacent, but not directly about American politics, is going to be the winner. And that's why I'm leaning Sing Sing at this moment. Could also see it be the Nickel Boys. I think those two look very juicy for films that are political, films that kind of reflect the feeling of this year, that don't overtly comment on it.
That is definitely something I could see. While I don't feel the same in terms of Nickel Boys, I see it with Sing Sing possibly. I also see it maybe more abrupt with something like Dune, and maybe even something like Joker. We don't exactly know where it's going, but could it comment on some similar themes? I guess my big thing with The Apprentice is, I think regardless, European audiences, European critics are going to eat this film up. They are going to love the commentary. They're going to love the stylization. It's just, how do the American critics feel? How do the American audiences feel? Are they going to be super divided? Are they going to be in unison? Or are they going to say this is the greatest thing in the world? Or are they going to say this is a complete just dumpster fire of a movie? And that's really what it comes down to, because I can see this doing great at something like BAFTA, great at something, great at stuff like that. However, when it comes over here, what are its thoughts? Because let's say it does premiere at Cannes. It gets raves out of Cannes. But then it comes over here and maybe it hits TIFF. And it's like, I don't really know. It could like pull the reverse May December, you could say, where like it's like loved over there, hated over here, or May December was kind of mixed over there, but like really loved over here. I don't know. I think it's very interesting with how it goes. I definitely think like At its worst, it's still probably going to get some nominations, and at its best, it is a Best Picture contender. And our final question of the week comes from Sing Streetcar, and they want us to know that you guys are so horrible at doing this. The format is annoying. You talk too fast and can hear it, which I know is kind of like
not a question,
joke,
but
a joke that we're reading this. But we want to say that we are open to feedback and stuff. So if anyone out there has things that you think we can do to improve the channel, improve our cadences, everything like that, let us know down below. Because you don't only have to comment positive stuff. We are open to criticism. Obviously, our takes aren't always going to be right. We said that once upon a time, Naomi Ackie would win Best Actress for I Want to Dance with Somebody. I had Bardo at number 2 for Best Picture. Matt had The Sun in for Picture. Like, there's all this stuff where we don't always hit 100% on, and no one's going to be 100% accurate. So, like I said, I know this is kind of a joke of reading it, but we are open to feedback. So if anyone does have stuff, please let us know. And we also want to hear your questions and your takes, so definitely drop them down below for our next episode come out next week.
Constructive criticism is great. I will say we talk fast because this video is an hour plus long already, probably like an hour 10, hour 20 at this point. So if we didn't talk fast, you'd be here all day. So that's the reason we talk fast. Catch up. But otherwise, let us know what you want us to do. We love the constructive criticism, totally open to it. So but that brings us to the end of the video. We're here. It's the end.
Boom.
And next week, we're going to be talking craft categories. That includes the score category, the production design, costume design, makeup, and lastly, we're going to be talking about what movies might have songs. So stay tuned for that one.
But until then, my name's Dyl.
And my name is Matt, and this has been Fantasy Filmball.